Ragin Cajun fans, we've got an exciting podcast for all of you guys out there today. I'm going to be joined by John Aiken from the advisory board of Krewe Allons, a unique NIL collective that's aimed at uplifting our UL student athletes. Krewe Allons is pioneering the path for athletes to really forge connections with the local community, businesses, entrepreneurs, so that both current and incoming talents feel supported, and in order for us to retain that talent right here in Lafayette. They're blending a little bit of marketing, events, athletics with a dash of Cajun pride. And John is here to shed light on this game-changing venture, and we're going to dive into how this is really revolutionizing the way our athletes connect with Lafayette, and how you, the community, can also take part in this journey. So tune in and go Cajuns. So John, thanks for being here. Tell me a little bit about your background for people who don't know who you are or your company that you're working with Ben Berthelot. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so obviously the name is John Aiken, and I was a basketball coach for 15 years. Spent 15 years coaching collegiate ball. Most recently down I-10 West, about an hour and a half over at McNeese. And,
oh, really?
Yeah, I was a head coach there for the last couple of years, and spent 5 years there total. I was down the bayou.
Are you from Lafayette originally?
I'm actually from Portland, Maine.
Oh, Portland, Maine. Okay.
Maine.
Well, how'd you end up in Louisiana? Just the job?
Just coaching.
Yeah,
just coaching. I moved from Maine. My first move was Maine to Jackson, Mississippi in 2008.
Oh, wow.
So we're just talking about your timeline, Boulder back here. But yeah, 2008, I moved to Jackson, and I just built my career in the South. Started having little connections and networking, and ended up in Thibodaux. Spent 2 years in Thibodaux at Nichols, and then the 5 years in Lake Charles.
Well, I mean, that's kind of the gig. When you're a coach, you got to be ready to move around, bounce around, right? I mean, that's...
So I tell people, one of the reasons I'm doing what I'm doing now, when I got let go at McNeese, my daughter, she's 13 in 8th grade, has already been in 6 different schools. And so She's a student council president for a middle school, cheer captain. I didn't feel right pulling her out 8th grade year, moving her to some other random town in the country. And so just decided to stay settled where you are, and that led me to this opportunity here in Lafayette.
Well, let's talk about it. So, because honestly, I have a lot of questions because I don't know much about it. I've, Tommy, my business partner with our media company, we've always talked about influencers, and wouldn't it be cool to have local influencers to help with your business? But for somebody like me who doesn't know much about what you do, let's break it down.
Sure. So what I do is it's the name, image, and likeness, NIL for short, in this collegiate athlete space. It's the new thing, right?
Sure.
A couple of years ago, 2021, I guess it was, they passed legislation saying that student athletes could monetize their name, image, and likeness. I think...
Now, was that a NCAA thing, or was that, like you said, legislation? Is that like government?
Both at state and federal level. Federal doesn't have a deal yet, but state levels started to say, okay, student athletes can monetize their name, image, and likeness. The NCAA had to really keep up because they were getting threatened with lawsuits. They lost 2 or 3 pretty large lawsuits. Mm-hmm. If you've heard of like the EA Sports had a sports game on Xbox, PlayStation franchise for NCAA football, basketball. Well, they didn't use players' names, but they used their likeness. So it wouldn't be Tim Tebow, but it'd be quarterback number 15 from the same hometown, same height, same weight.
Right.
So they had this huge lawsuit saying that you were using our likeness without monetizing us. And so when that happened...
So they were making money?
EA Sports was.
No kidding.
Yeah, EA Sports was making all kinds of money off of it. And so...
So that was the catalyst of this.
So a guy named Ed O'Bannon, who played with the UCLA basketball team, they won a championship back in the 90s. He sued EA Sports and I believe the NCAA for not being allowed to monetize his name, image, and likeness while they were. And so they actually stopped producing that franchise because they were like, oh man, we're gonna have to spend a lot of money. So they did. That was kind of the that's what got this thing going with NIL. And then the NCAA had to keep up with states. I want to say California may have been the first state to legalize it. And so then it became...
So it actually had to become a law? Like this is like a state law that they said they couldn't get paid. Correct. And then it wasn't just a rule with the NCAA.
Right. So there's state laws that now allow, some states allow high school athletes to use their NIL.
Really?
Some don't allow it until you get onto a college campus. And so each state is different. There's some states that don't allow it at all, but those are few and far between now. And so you actually will see what's crazy. You now see high school kids transferring, leaving their school and their state and going to states that allow them to monetize their name, image, and likeness for high school. And so for us now at UL, we had to catch up. You know, we're 2 years behind because a lot of schools, as soon as this launched in 2021, they hit the ground running.
Right.
UL did some things that didn't necessarily take off. They planted some seeds, but they didn't take root. And so that's where I came into play, trying to help grow a program to get this thing going.
Well, so let's talk about it. Like, what is the program? What is it? Because obviously I read on your website, it's really what you guys are focused on is Ragin Cajun. So,
Yes.
So no other school. Is it
Correct.
through the school or is it?
No. So it's a third party. All of these NIL deals have to be done through third parties. The school can't have any involvement in terms of the facilitation of getting funds, of how the funds get dispersed.
Right.
And so I actually created Krewe Allons. It's an LLC that I own. I'm the president of. And then what we did is we said, okay, who in Lafayette has really good influence that we could partner with to be a part of an advisory board? If you go back, rewind to 2021 when they started this NIL stuff, the intent was for student athletes to go out and promote themselves, to market themselves, to get with Keaty Real Estate, to get with different organizations and promote their brand.
Right.
At the end of the day, a lot of 18 to 22-year-old kids don't know how to do that. They don't know how to build influence. They can do it a little bit on social media, but they don't know how to go and create these types of engagements or experiences. And
also, how do you articulate the value which you can bring to the table?
Right.
Why would you want me to pay you? You know,
I
actually, when that happened, I thought we were going to see a bunch of agencies, like the same type of agents that are working for the pros, like start pushing it.
Yep.
But there's a void there.
You're starting to see some of that. I actually just texted with a lady here in town who she's an NIL agent. And so she is facilitating some deals.
Well, and that's kind of what you're doing.
Yeah.
I mean, so you're an agency.
I've become an agency and source.
But specifically for
UL.
The UL.
Yeah. And so what I've done is you see the need. You see all these student athletes that don't really know how to market themselves. You see all these businesses that want to get involved, but there's a lot of one-offs. So maybe 2-3 deals get done, but it's not a lot.
Sure.
And so what I did, I created an event-based model. So created a basketball event that we did a couple weeks ago. Sold very specifically for that event because this NIL space is so just out of people's comfort zone in some ways. So when I go and ask for $2,500 to the collective, they're like, what's the collective? What's NIL?
Yeah.
Well,
what is that?
If I go and ask for a $2,500 sponsorship to a gala where you're going to get to see the players and you're going to have an auction, you're going to get a meal and Wayne Tubes is going to be there. It's a much easier, softer ask. And so that was kind of my idea. How can we get this off the ground? Create events that we can sell sponsorships to, sell tickets to, and then it introduces people into the collective, what we're trying to do. And then from that, we raise a big pot of money. And then the Krewe Allons, the collective, can sign student athletes as brand ambassadors to promote Krewe Allons, to promote partner businesses through their social media, through showing up. Like we're doing a deal at Dragos every Friday. Well, I will sign contracts with those student athletes to come, hang out, put it on social media, take pictures. And so I'm able to raise those funds through these events. And so that's really the model. Now we also have...
So let's go back. So you're having these events as it's really bringing everybody in one place where it makes sense. Okay, I can sponsor a $2,500 table, and now I'm going to be part of this event.
Yep.
And I get to get some face time and start to understand maybe some of the players,
right?
You know, and then you're able to sign contracts with them. Are you signing contracts with the companies to like Dragos. Exactly. You're paying the student, and then Drago's paying you.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
So Dragos is monetizing us to have the student athletes show up.
Okay.
They're given a portion of the proceeds. Like I did a deal with Lafayette Travel. They were one of our sponsors.
Right.
Berthelot's on our advisory board.
Yeah.
So he gave a certain amount of money to be a business partner with us, right? And so now we can promote him at our events. We could also provide a student athlete to do some type of advertising or promotion with him, and so we're able to, I basically facilitate, I work with both sides, work with the student athletes, work with businesses, individuals. There's online giving, our football team just won this week to go 5-3, and so I immediately put out, hey, give $53 to the collective for us being 5-3, and within a matter of an hour, we raised several $100s like that, just putting some out there. And so there's different ways to get giving. It's almost like a crowdfunding type campaign in some ways.
Sure.
That then gets put together to disperse out to the student.
Well, how do you disperse it to the student athletes? Like, I mean, is it a nonprofit, so all the money's coming in and you paying expenses, but then the money's going some kind of pool?
So the IRS has said that these collectives can't be set up as nonprofits.
Okay.
They came out and said that they're not run as a typical nonprofit would run. They're not a charitable organization. And so what we really are is a marketing and advertising agency for
that makes sense.
For our 1099 clients, and so what we do is we enter into 1099 contracts with different student athletes. It might be one-time deal. Hey, show up at this specific event for this specific amount, or like what we just did with some of the basketball players, we actually are doing a month-to-month deal. So for 7 months, there's a contract that will run with them where they have certain expectations that they have to meet. And so we're able to do that.
Well, I mean, a lot of the stuff they're already doing. They're already doing before this all happened. They were doing signing, days. They were going to these events, just to promote the sport and raise funds for the college. But now they get to participate in it and actually benefit financially from it.
Yeah. So you're able. They'll still do some of that stuff for the athletic department, obviously, to promote their individual sports. But we're able to create different opportunities and experiences, try to make them more intimate. It might be a grandiose, like we did with the gala at the DoubleTree, and we're selling 60 tables or whatever it was and having 500 people there. It might be a deal on a patio at a restaurant and there's 50 people there and it's more intimate. Or it may even be, hey, I want to take a baseball player out to dinner with my friends at a restaurant. We can figure out a way to help facilitate and monetize that student athlete for making an appearance.
And so you talked about it's almost like a membership with you. Is that right? So like the business owner, can participate at different levels of membership.
Right. And so we have different levels right now. Those levels, we don't have. Eventually, we will get to a place where each level you may get a nice quarter zip, you may get a nice polo, you may get. Right now, the levels are, hey, at our top King of the Crew amount, you're going to be a presenting sponsor at every event we have throughout the year. At our we themed them all just like a Mardi Gras crew. So we have King of the Crew, we have like a rider member of the crew, we have a social member of the crew, we have a walking member of the crew, junior member, So it speaks that language of South Louisiana. People understand it. Well, the more you give, the more access you have to our events.
Yeah.
And then the more access you have to student athletes at your business, your organization.
Yeah.
We're going to do some stuff in the spring around the Mardi Gras season. And so if you're a big giver, there may be an opportunity at like a ball or potentially a parade or something like that where you could be involved at that level. Have student athletes participate in those with you. And so that's the levels for us. The more you give, the more access you get to the crew's events, and the more access you get to the student athletes. Eventually, I would like to really be able to give back branding, do some different things, even kind of like what you're doing, where we have a podcast where maybe we bring on some business owners with student athletes and just give them unique opportunities to visit. We're in infancy mode. Me and you talked before, we were shooting this is an organic growth for me too. You know,
Right.
I'm growing it from really a foundation of not much.
Do you have like a playbook that you're taking from somebody else around the
Yeah.
country? You know,
Yeah,
I'm sure you'll have some meetings and conferences you can go to.
Yeah. And you don't have to recreate the wheel.
Right.
You know, there's a lot of schools that already got these things off the ground. And so,
But it's all relatively new. I mean,
it's
just
2
within,
years old.
yeah,
I mean,
24 months.
The industry is only 2 years old.
Yeah.
And so what I do, it's hard. LSU has a great collective.
Mm-hmm.
Well, LSU's got their base is a little bit higher. So you can mimic what they're doing a little bit, but you really want to look at other group of 5 schools and see what they're doing. Like Colorado State has a really good collective. They're in the Mountain West. I think it's a very comparable level. And so I actually talked with the guy that opened their collective back in April or May about some different things and saw what he did. Southern Miss has a collective. So mimicked a little bit of kind of how they built their collective and what that needed to look like.
So what's the difference between a collective and like a agency?
So, I mean, agency, typically if you're an agency in the NIL space, you're working very specifically with a finite number of players. Mm-hmm. And you're really promoting those 3 to 5 players to very specific businesses. Mm-hmm. And you're working on those business giving you big dollar amounts. The collective is more of like an army approach. You're trying to recruit the masses, right? You're trying to get a lot of people to give into a big pot. And then instead of just working with 3, 4, 5 student athletes, I'm trying to touch as many student athletes as I possibly can. Yeah. You know, so like with the basketball event that we raised some money, we signed every single basketball student athlete to some type of NIL deal. So
that's cool. So everybody gets an opportunity.
So everybody on that team was involved in the event, and then also is being able to monetize their name, image, and likeness through working with us as a brand ambassador. Yeah. You know, and so typically an agency is not going to work with a walk-on, you know, or right. You know, whereas we signed 2 walk-ons from the basketball team to be a part of the crew. And so for me, but we were only able to do that because we went and raised a bunch of money that went into a big pot. Yeah. You know, it wasn't just one person gave $100,000. And so I just have to promote that brand. You know, we were able to get 20 auction items that we sold. And so you could put that money into a pot and you can just promote it however you want. You can use those funds however you'd like.
So how do you determine that? Like who gets what? I mean, is it just across the board equally, or is it like you got to like figure that out?
You got to have a little bit of street sense. Yeah. You got to, for me, I think that's where my background as a coach comes into play.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah. Like, you know, for somebody who hasn't been a coach, doesn't understand the college, you know, atmosphere, it's got to be, because you got to be, I'm sure you got to be sensitive to that.
100%. You got to be sensitive to the locker room. Yeah. You got to be sensitive to what the coaches need. Mm-hmm. And at the end of the day, a coach right now, like Des, he could give a rip about NIL today. Mm-hmm. Now, 5 weeks from now when the season's over, he's going to be like, what's our NIL look like? Where's it at? He's worried about beating Arkansas State on Saturday. Right. You know, he's worried about making sure his kids show up and practice hard. So where I come into play is thinking about that for him, trying to get a lay of the land of what are other schools doing for NIL. Right. Who could potentially come in here and try to raid our program and try to recruit some of our players, because that's going to happen now. Yeah. I was with the football staff before I came in today with you, and I said, look, while we're out recruiting, don't think that people aren't recruiting our roster. Right. That's happening. Yeah. And so trying to be cognizant of thinking of that, having my ear to the ground, know what other collectives are doing. And then honestly, it's seniority. It's not supposed to be a production thing. Yeah. But it's who has the brand, who has the awareness. Right. Typically the people that have that brand and the awareness are the ones that have been around the longest, have had success. And so you really want to try to take care of those guys as best you can through their NIL.
So, I mean, you've got your ear to the ground and talking to the athletes too, like finding out like who's talking to who, because that gives you that's who you need to target too. If LSU or Colorado State's got they're trying to recruit from us, you got to know, okay, well, we got to outperform them or at least have some type of incentive program in place so that they can see the potential.
Yeah. They need to know that we're thinking of what we're going to provide for them. Yeah. They need to know like we were able to do for a few of the football guys, Zion Chris and Kendrick Gant, Casey Osai came to Drago's thing just to promote them as they were having success early in the year. And we're going to do that for a few more here next 2 weeks at Drago's. And so helping them understand, hey, this is something we're wanting to provide, not just the great collegiate experience that they get at UL. They get a phenomenal education. They get, Des does an incredible job, all that. Coach Diggs, Coach Glasgow, Coach Marnie, they do we got incredible coaches. But now this helps them. It's another part of their experience. And it's another part. It's going on all over the country. And so I come into play and help them know, hey, we're thinking about it. We're doing some things. Things are in motion. And not just in motion. Here's actual proof. Come to this event. We're going to monetize you for it.
So, how big do you think, how much do you think this is going to impact the college sports in general? It's got to be, it's got to have great impact across the board, huh? I would think that it could also, this isn't just about paying those individual agents or not agents, the individual athletes, but it's also about recruiting. It's about like retention. Mm-hmm. It's all working together to create, a long-lasting, better team, right?
Yeah. Like here, we have a head coach who does a phenomenal job. He's a development guy. He likes to develop. If you're going to develop, you better retain. If you're going to recruit young kids, you better be able to retain them.
Yeah.
So how do you retain in this climate? You have to have a robust collective to take care of the NIL needs of your student athletes. Before I came in here today, again, just kind of having my ear to the ground, the University of Syracuse collective just put out today, they have a campaign to raise $500,000 between now and December 11th. I texted one of the football coaches. I said, they are not raising $500,000 for recruiting high school students.
Right.
They're raising $500,000 to recruit our guys or to keep their guys.
Right.
And it's very specific. They want it by December 11th. It just happens to coincide with the end of the football season. So they know, man, we have to have this $500K in place for our retention and recruiting needs. And so for us,
how are they're telling people that, hey, we're raising 500,000? Are y'all telling people like, hey, we're raising, we want $1 million? Or
we haven't put out those type of numbers yet because those schools are so advanced in this.
They have to be.
Yeah, their awareness. They've been doing it for 2 years, so the awareness.
It's a higher competition. When you're in some of these larger schools. You're competing against bigger schools.
Right. You think about Florida State is in the same league as Syracuse, right?
Right.
Florida State is probably going to be the number one team in the country here in the next couple of weeks. Their collective has almost, I saw it the other day, I think it's 1,100 members in their collective. So 1,100 people have given to their collective. 1,100 times, let's say people give a $500 average, which that's really low at Florida State. You're talking about $500-some thousand. And you think
that's on a monthly basis or just yearly?
I think that's could be monthly. I think from what I've heard, the big schools, you're talking $10 to $20 million in their collective.
Yeah.
For us, I would love by the end of this year for us to have raised $1 million. That's a very ambitious goal, but we're 6 figures in right now that we've raised in a month's worth of time. And so.
Congratulations.
Thank you, man. Thank you. Yeah, we've been...
So that y'all just started this a couple months ago?
So we launched this thing officially October 11th.
Wow. So we're not even... we're basically a 1 month in.
Yeah, not even. So before the first home football game against Northwestern State, I was planning the event for the basketball program. It was going to be taking place October 12th. And I had a committee, and they had people ready to write checks for sponsoring the event, but we didn't know where we were going to have the checks go to. Mm-hmm. And so I went to Dr. Maggart, and I said, look, I know there's some things that we need in place. We need to do a soft rollout. so that I can have people write checks to the collective, and this can be a collective event. So that gave us literally a month to plan for that. I think the athletic department in some ways wanted to see kind of how that rollout went. So literally the day before our basketball event, we had an official rollout with the athletic department. That was just over 2 weeks ago.
Right.
So yeah, we've just, in 2 weeks of being connected officially with the athletic department, being on the website, doing those types of things, we've raised over $100,000. And so it's
Congrats, man. That's really great.
Thank you. And so now my attention shifts to football. Football, we have 5 weeks until the end of their season. So now we have a 5-week run-up to really raise some funding for them because their transfer portal opens on December 4th. Well, you want to be able to have some things in place to be able to attack the transfer portal with, to keep things kind of at bay.
Yeah. Well, next year you'll be just that much further ahead than you were this year.
Correct.
I mean, what did the schools prepare for this, or is it something that is just something that you've been pushing?
So here's really how it happened. When I got let go at McNeese, like I talked about with my daughter, I didn't want to move her. And so I'd run these events at McNeese as a basketball coach for the last 5 years, and we'd raised a ton of money. So I called Coach Marlin. It was Easter weekend. Called Coach Marlin, called a couple other contacts. I said, hey, what if we ran this type of an event for NIL? And so initially I thought I was going to have an event planning company, which I do. And I was going to do these events all over the country. I've got guys that coach Alabama,
not just for
California. And I thought that was going to be my business model.
Right.
I would do 3 or 4 in the fall. I'd do 3 or 4 in the spring. Maybe do a one-off around Christmas time or something. Well, then I came here and pitched this to Dr. Maggart, and he just kind of said, do you think you could do something like this for the whole athletic department? And at the time, I'm a lot like you. I was like, yeah, sure, why not? Well, I have no clue what that looks like, but yeah, we could do it.
You were dumb enough to say yes.
Yeah. But even then, my attention was still, I'm going to do all these things all over the place. And what I'll end up doing 4 or 5 events for UL.
Yeah.
Well, it kind of organically shifted through the summer as I started working with the other schools that had collectives in place. My event planning company is called the Players Promotional Group. Okay. So we were going to run the first basketball event through the Players Promotional Group. That means nothing to Lafayette, Louisiana.
Right.
You ask someone to write a check to that, it's like, what is this? It raises eyebrows. Who is this? What are we doing? That was where the idea of we need to have a branded collective that makes sense to South Louisiana, that Lafayette, Acadiana can familiarize themselves with.
Yeah.
That this isn't just a one-time deal. This is a grand opening. This becomes a launching point that we can build something with. And so I called Dr. Maggart. It was mid to late July, I guess. And I said, hey, what if I started a collective? And he was like, man, that would be a godsend. So that's when we really started brainstorming. How could this look? What do we need to do? The concept of Krewe Allons came up. I thought Krewe was a great way. Join the Krewe. It's very marketable.
Love it.
And so it was really organically how I got to Lafayette. And as soon as I made the decision to do the collective here, I shut down all the other stuff. So I'm not, the Players Promotional Group exists. Like we did an event for Southern Miss for their basketball program. But I've shifted 100% my attention to UL.
Yeah.
And my goal now is to grow this collective so that a year from now, it's robust. And I would love to be able to say we raised $1 million. This time next year we do this podcast again.
Yeah.
We raised $1 million plus, and we were able to sign this many student athletes as brand ambassadors. And these are the different events that we did throughout the year. And we're trying to grow this thing maybe to $2 million.
Right.
So for me, I just wanted to get really laser and narrow focused here at UL. And it's so far, we've got a lot of momentum. Guys like being able to do stuff like this is just phenomenal for our brand. And so we just got to keep building it.
Well, we appreciate you being on this because we really want to help get the word out and understand what exactly the ideal member is. So let's break that down. When somebody's considering, okay, maybe I could use, because basically the athletes are influencers is what you're selling is the marketing part. Right. So what is your ideal customer throughout the year? I mean, does it change or shift during the seasons, or is it somebody like me who, I go to all the UL events, or, as many as I can, but I'm not a big sports fan. So I couldn't tell you what athletes what, and Tommy and I have talked about that. Like, I mean, I need somebody to tell me who is the influencer, who would I want at an event, or, open house or something, you know what I mean? Like, what is your ideal customer, and how do you match them up with the right people? Because I'm sure some people, like, we talked about Adam Andrews. I mean, he knows every player out there, so he knows exactly who he would want. But, like, what does your customer look like? Who are you looking for?
It's a multi-pronged approach for me. And that's probably a convoluted way of answering that question. But to grow the collective, I think you have to really cater to the guy that can give $10 a month. If you can get 100 people to do that, it's $10,000, throughout the course of the year. So you have to be able to hit the blue collar, doesn't have a lot.
Yeah, that's where the masses is.
Right.
It's a bigger pool.
You have to promote to the masses to get kind of like a foundation. But then
and the only way to get them is to have an event of some sort. They have to have some kind of benefit to give $10, $20.
Or you build out the excitement of what's currently going on. So like this weekend, the football team won. And so I put on the website, give $53 for the football team going 5-3. Well, you build off that excitement, you put it out there, and within an hour we raised almost $1,000.
Yeah.
And there wasn't really give back to it. It was just, hey, let's celebrate the win.
Right.
So we have to be able to do some of those things, but then we have to continue to get companies to partner with us. I've called it like a business alliance, a local business alliance, where local companies at certain levels join with us. I'm meeting with a restaurant this week. They want to do a special cocktail that $1 per dollar amount, $1, $2, $3 of every cocktail that is sold throughout the year goes to the collective.
Nice.
I'm talking to a guy here in town that has a brewery about creating a beer. I'm talking to another place that a distillery about creating something, so that there's these little opportunities where money's kind of just being driven to you.
Yeah.
So you have that, but then like a Katie Real Estate, hey, I'll get you a female student athlete, a male student athlete, and a coach to show up and promote your brand for $5,000.
Yeah.
Or we'll put you on a billboard, with your marketing stuff behind it.
Right.
You're allianced with the crew, and so I know it's a convoluted way of answering that, because you need the masses, but we really need, I would love to have 50 companies in an alliance.
Right.
If we had 50 at 5,000 minimum, you're talking $250,000 if you do that. And so that's kind of my goal. Now, if you get 50 at 10,000, all of a sudden you've got $500,000 towards the collective.
Right.
And that's ambitious.
Yeah.
But that's kind of my goal, is to get to a place where, and it doesn't have to be a one-off. It may be, hey, I want to be the title sponsor for the football event this week in December.
Right.
That's $10,000. I want to be the title sponsor.
Well, how does that work with UL Athletics? Because they're trying to get sponsorships too. Like, how are y'all? I mean, I know y'all are on the same team, but how does that?
It's hard. It's hard. And what we have to do is communicate. Mm-hmm. We have great communication. Like I told you, I was with the football coaches this morning. I was also like going through administration and just kind of letting them know, hey, here's compliance wise, making sure I'm good, making sure I'm doing things that are NCAA compliant,
right?
Making sure my contracts are good. Who are you guys prospecting? Is there anyone I don't need to go after? Mm-hmm. You know, hey, we have an event that we're going to start promoting. Like I just went to the sports information guy, said, look, I'm going to put something out today. I would love it if you piggybacked with me. Yeah, gotcha. Went to 2 or 3 of the guys that are trying to raise money for season tickets and different things. Just went and told them, hey, what's up?
Right.
I don't want to be viewed as a competitor. You know, well, the thing that I said this in coaching, when I was a coach, I wanted to have, if I could have a roster of 15 players that were better than your 15 players, I'd take them. You always want to have more talent, right? Rising tides raise all ships, is what I believe. I think probably your model too. You bring in really good agents, you coach them up. Even what you told me before, I thought was incredible. You work with other agencies in town. You promote other brands. Has it hurt your brand?
No.
It's done what?
It just supports everything.
It's
the more you
enhanced it.
help the group,
Right.
the better everybody is.
And that's my philosophy. If I can raise our tide by helping to retain,
Yeah.
then it's easier for the RCAF to go sell premium seats because we retained the quarterback.
Fair. Right.
You know?
Right.
Whereas if we don't retain the quarterback, you got a bunch of disgruntled fans like, oh man, we don't,
Yeah.
who are we going to have next year? It's a harder sell for them.
And they can't give any money to it has to come through you.
Right. I had a lady that I was talking to the other day, and she put it so great. What people have to understand, when you give to RCAF, when you give to the Alumni Association, a lot of that is charitable giving, right? It can be deducted that way. That's a bucket that a lot of companies and individuals have. They have to give away so much charitably. They have to do so much that they want to do. My bucket is advertising and marketing. Well, people also have that figured into their budgets. So we might be going to the same people for money, but I'm asking out of a separate bucket.
Yeah.
You know, the one I have to work a lot with is like Learfield, you know, because Learfield does the corporate sponsorships at UL. And so you don't want to step on their toes too much, but you have to be able to go out and get some funding that maybe they hadn't, or it's a smaller dollar amount for me. They're trying to get a 6-figure package. And if I could get it for 10, I'd get it. They didn't want to do a 6-figure package. So you have to be really strategic. And I meet with those guys all the time to make sure that, again, I'm navigating the waters in a way that works for everybody.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and then you mentioned something earlier about the students. Like, you're signing up the students. Like, are there students that aren't signing up?
So there's students that would love to be involved. I would love to have every student athlete signed. You know, the issue is there's only so much funding to go around. Yeah, right. You know, and so we have.
So you're choosing which students, you know, you're signing. It's not about them not signing with you and going somewhere else. It's just
correct.
You know, you're basically signing anybody is willing.
But I think there's some that can help promote the brand. I'd love to do a deal with every one of them. That's why I liked what we did with basketball. We were able to take care of every single guy on that team through a partnership. I would love it if that were the case. We're gonna have to get creative with some of the Olympic sports in terms of maybe partnering with some different organizations that are doing a really good job raising money in this space, and say, hey, look, that pot is going to this track or something. I don't know, just kind of spitballing, or that's going to volleyball, or going to one of those Olympic sports. The big pool is probably going to get diced up by the major sports here. And to me, the major sports are obviously football, men's basketball, obviously, but then baseball and softball. I mean, at the end of the day, you got really two sports on this campus that I think can win national championships at any time. And they both involve a bat and a ball. So those are very, my awareness, we really have to be able to continue to help them do it. They're doing an unbelievable job, but to continue to enhance what they're doing through NIL, those are two major sports that we have to provide for.
Where do you see it going in the next 24 months? I mean, you're a month in, but where do you see this? How do you think this is going to change the field out there in general? So
I think there's a couple ways to go with that question. The federal government, I think, is going to get involved at some level. You know, right now you got all these states with different laws. And so the NCAA is they're grasping at straws. You know, they're trying to figure out, what can we do? How does this need to look? They're pushing Congress to pass some kind of federal legislation. The NCAA now
which is that legislation? Are they pushing for it to keep it limits so that it keeps the level playing field?
I think they would love it if they were granted some type of an exemption to where student athletes were always going to be considered amateur. And is that me? Sorry.
Oh, you're all good.
Here, I have not. I think that what will happen is they want to keep amateurs. Okay, they don't want them. They don't want to have just a wild west, right? They want to have some sort of order. Well, what's happened in this NIL space, it's just an arms race. Whoever can raise the most money in the collective,
it's going to get the best.
It's going to get the best players.
Yeah.
And it's honestly, it's changed the game. Like your alma mater, Dion.
Yeah.
He was able to go out and he's raising all kinds of money through NIL. Obviously, he's Dion.
I could imagine.
But he's going to be able to get better players than they ever got before. He's going to beat different schools that don't have great NIL programs. Like I'm real good friends with a guy at Mississippi State. It's going to be harder for Mississippi State to keep up because of their NIL program. There's only so much money in Starkville, Whereas you go to Lexington, Kentucky, I bet Lexington, Kentucky could raise a whole lot of NIL money, and so the rich just get a little bit richer. But then it's interesting, a school like Ole Miss, right? Ole Miss kind of been a mid-tier SEC program. Well, they have a ton of money. And what their money now is doing is going into the NIL. They have I think they have one of the top 5 NIL programs in the whole country.
Really?
They do an unbelievable job. A lot of the ideas that I've gotten is from kind of looking at what they do.
Yeah.
Now, the guy that runs their NIL collective used to be the CEO of Under Armour. And so you don't think he has some connections?
Right.
And so what's happened, these power player collectives have actually started to form coalitions. So you've got a collective like myself working on my own where these 15 major Power 5 schools have formed a conglomerate. And so now they can go get national deals. They can go get a national marketing deal with a Coca-Cola, and that money can get divvied up. So they go get a $5 million deal and it gets divvied up between 15 programs, or they can do different things.
Well, why would that matter? Like, are you saying because they're doing a deal with Coca-Cola and they're signing up 5 different states?
Because Coca-Cola now is saying, hey, look, I'll give $5 million to this coalition, and I'm going to get access to 15 Power 5 schools at $5 million. I'm just
throwing so they're doing commercials separately at each
so they're getting a student athlete from each program. Whereas,
are they getting a better deal? Why not just go to every?
I think they're getting a better deal because if you go to each school, all of a sudden you're being asked to give $250 or $500. Yeah, you do that. All of a sudden you do that for 10 schools, and you're at what you could have got for 15 schools. And so I think that's where that coalition is starting to come into play. And so what it's going to do is just put more and more pressure on the little guys. Yeah. Because they just keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger. There's all kinds of ways that from the federal legislation level it can go. For us, what I can focus on in the next 12 to 24 months, my goal is to have incredible awareness and education of what Krewe Allons is. I want UL fans to know that we are the NIL arm for UL athletics. That's what we do. I want people, when people ask about NIL, just at Don's, they're having a drink, a happy hour, and they're like, have you seen this NIL stuff on ESPN? Yeah, we got Krewe Allons here. They're doing a great job. Yeah. I want people to have that type of awareness of us throughout the year. I would love for us to be close to $1 million in raised funding.
Well, how are you going to get out there? Like, it seems like it could just domino if people started seeing more of those athletes on more advertising. Right. So like, once you start seeing that, then you start getting more demand because now you got people like, oh, well, they're doing it. Yeah. I should do it. And
that's what's happened, Jim. Like this deal at Dragos. Okay. Dragos approached us on it. I was brand new in this. It was a cool concept. They're giving us some money back for whatever gets spent on Friday nights. I've had 2 or 3 restaurants say, hey, can we do that? Yeah. And so just that opportunity has spawned some opportunities in itself.
And so how does that event work, like for Dragos? So I call it Dragos, but...
Dragos, whatever it is.
Yeah, but how... So did they approach you to have these events, or did you approach... You were looking for a facility to have the events, or like?
It honestly wasn't even on my radar. There was a guy local guy named Carter Semino. I don't know if you know Carter.
Oh yeah.
He was an anchor on one of the local stations, and then he does a podcast, Katie and a Cast, and all the rest of things. Right. Well, I got in contact with him about doing some things. He's working with a group called O.D. White Associates out of Baton Rouge, who Dragos has used to try to get the Lafayette restaurant get going.
Mm-hmm.
Well, all those things kind of came together. They wanted access to UL student athletes, but thought that maybe that could drive traffic. If you go through the athletic department, you can't get the student athletes because they can't monetize them.
Right.
And to advertise at the level that they wanted to advertise, they didn't think they were going to get the return of people showing up. Whereas if you get student athletes to show up, you're guaranteed to at least get some fans to show up, maybe some parents. You're going to get people there.
Sure.
So they came to me and said, hey, would you be interested in doing a 6-week series of events on the patio? 40% of whatever we raise will go back to the collective. I thought it was just a great opportunity for us to get out and start doing something.
Yeah.
You know, it was a cool opportunity to get out and try. And
because now you have like an anchor, like an event where you can promote for the other members to join. And so it is kind of like a catalyst.
Yeah. And what it can, like, I'm always thinking about, okay, this Friday, what student athlete needs to be there? Next Friday, what student athletes do I need to have there? But then, I mean, this week today I have another meeting. Tomorrow I have one with companies that want to do the same type of thing. They've seen
what you're doing.
They've seen what we're doing there. Like, and we want to be a part of that. We want to be able to have that type of access.
Right.
We want people to get driven to our place for a happy hour.
Right.
And so you get that kind of spin off. The basketball event, when you got 400 and so people in an event, we had Wayne Toops there. The guys are in tuxedos. I had so many people like, man, when are you doing one of these again? What's the next event going to look like? You know, like
it's creating that buzz.
Yeah,
that's what you need.
There's a great supporter, Todd Viator. He does a lot of he does a paint contractor. He does a ton of stuff.
Yeah.
Well, he personally was part of a committee that I had for the basketball event. Sold 7 or 8 tables of people that were there. He told me, we had a follow up to the event last week. He said, every one of my tables said, let me know when we're doing that again. We're there. And so when you start to get that type of awareness, it becomes a snowball in some ways, right? And so it's just...
Well, it's interesting how it's really become a community thing through the collective.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's not what I was expecting to happen when they announced that this was going to... I really thought it was going to be individual agents selling different, like coming to all the businesses and B2B. Hey, I've got this guy, you know, $2,500, and he can say this on your commercial.
Yeah.
But like, I love the fact that it's really created a like more of an ecosystem where everybody's winning together.
Yeah. And I think the initial push, that's what people thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
They thought it was going to be B2B sales. The issue is it's really C2B sales. It's a consumer. It's a student athlete who's really not. They think that they're supposed to be a business. They have no clue.
No, well, you know? and they shouldn't be doing that anyway.
Right.
They should be focused on school and athletes. Yeah.
You know, and I always said as a coach, all right, if I just showed up to my team in October, I said, all right, guys, the gym's going to be open at 2:00 to 5:00. You got a great opportunity to get here, practice,
right?
You know, whenever you want. You got resources. We're going to give you, and we'll educate you now on how to do it. They're not going to do it. They're not going to show up. If they do show up, it's going to be sporadically. You have to give them structure. Here's what it needs to look like. Show up at this time. Here's what you need to wear. Here's the culture. Here's what we're trying to build. It's the same thing to me with NIL. You need to be able to educate a student athlete. Hey, if they're working with Keaty Real Estate, here's how you need to look. Here's what their brand's about. Yeah, they're going to help educate you on that, but I become the agent almost to make sure that transaction is pulled off well.
Right.
That there's good communication lines going between the two. Because I that's the beginning of it. That was a phase, but then these collectives.
Well, then nothing happened.
Nothing happened.
I mean, I literally didn't. I was actually shocked that because Tommy and I 2 years ago we were talking about, you know, how important influencers are. I mean, we had a running meeting every week on, okay, what are some influencers? How can we leverage their brand to be part of, you know, something bigger? And I really thought that like we were going to be getting, you know, people knocking on our door saying, hey, I've got, you know, Johnny Football, you know, like what would have happened if if this was in place.
Oh man, he would have made stupid amounts of money.
Yeah,
stupid amounts of money. But that's like
instead, I mean, the rules kind of really, you could say, put him on the wrong path.
Yes. I mean, if this were in place, he got hammered for some autographs. He got hammered for all kinds of just little things that now would be very legal.
And yet he raised $300 million for the college.
It was the most successful 2-year run they ever had fundraising. But yeah, I think
so for people like that, I would imagine they're going to have an agent.
Yeah,
it's going to be.
I mean, we have student athletes here at UL that have agents.
Yeah,
like I talked with one of the agents this morning. I'm going to have lunch with them this week again because guess what? I would venture to guess there's probably other schools talking to that agent,
right?
That are interested in that student athlete service that they represent.
So you're acting as an agent, but also a go-between between the UL. I mean, the college and the agents or the.
Correct. Yeah, I mean, you're having it's having that ear to the ground, knowing what's going on, what's the landscape out there. I mean, you can bury your head in the sand and think that it's not happening, but
right.
you gotta be out thinking about it. These collectives, what it enables to happen is there's a driver for NIL. Like I'm driving NIL awareness and funding in Lafayette. A month ago there was no driver.
Well,
there was programs in place, but there wasn't someone actively engaging and driving it.
Right.
You have to have that driver. You have to have someone that wakes up every day thinking, how are we building this? How are we growing this?
I would venture to say it's a lot like lobbyists. Like you got to have a lobbyist, like if you don't have your lobbyist, somebody else is going to be lobbying against you and you're going to be sorry.
Man, I was at the Beaver Club. They meet over at City Club. I had lunch. They asked me to come.
They just cooked 5,000 chickens this weekend.
Barbecue. Yeah, I saw that. They asked me to come and speak and kind of educate, kind of what I did when Ethan at this event for Ben.
Yeah.
And there was 2 lobbyists sitting at my table. And I was like, man, we got so much in common.
Yeah, I mean,
it's very
because
very,
if you're not raising money for lobbyists, somebody else is,
100%.
and it's not going to be in your favor.
Yep. Right. I mean, like I said, you can bury your head in the sand, but if you're not working, I promise you somebody else is working.
And it's interesting though, like how this has evolved to something so positive.
Yeah.
In my mind, going from what I thought it would be to what you're telling me now, what you guys are doing, it just seems just a positive experience for everybody involved, for the community, for the business owners, for the UL and the students.
Yeah. I think it just creates new opportunities. It's all about how you shape it too. It's all about whoever is driving it, whoever's leading it, that's going to be the perception. One thing that I've said ever since I got started in this, we all have an NIL. At 41 years old, I have an NIL right now. It's who I've been to the people I've worked with, the people I've coached. You have an NIL. Your organization has a great NIL in Lafayette because people are aware of it. The brand is phenomenal. That's what I want our student athletes to understand. Your NIL doesn't stop when you get your diploma. That's really just the beginning of your NIL.
Yeah.
Once you get that diploma, then that's really the foundation to launch really what your career NIL is going to look like, your career brand.
Yeah.
And so really trying to help guys understand that, that this is a great opportunity to monetize, but it's going to be peanuts compared to what they can earn over the course of their career outside of their sport.
Yeah.
If you get I was talking to a business owner here, car dealer. Mm-hmm. So what if you got a guy that was a quote unquote influencer, right? Signed him to a deal, put him in a car, whatever you wanted to do. 5 years from now, he's got a great following. He comes back to be a car sales guy. Guess what? He's probably going to get some people to just show up on your lot just because they want to hang out.
Yeah.
He can put some stuff on his IG and people are going to show up because they want to test drive a car because he just put it out there.
Yeah.
Well, same thing for like yourself.
Right.
You get a lady off the softball team, or you get a guy from the baseball team that has had a ton of success, and all of a sudden he gets a billboard with Katie Real Estate that he's showing homes and he's selling. People have a trust in him because of what they saw him do at UL and her. And so that's the long-term play from an NIL standpoint for me. it's not just building your brand to get paid. It's building your brand so that you can build a career outside of athletics when you get done.
What it also, I think, keeps it on top of their mind that they do have a brand.
Yeah.
And so that don't mess it up.
Absolutely.
Right? You know, you got to cherish that and take care of it and not ruin it, because, you know, one day you're going to be relying on that one way or the other.
There's no doubt about it. I mean, your brand is good or bad. Whatever people perceive of you, unfortunately, is what your brand tends to be. Perception's reality. Perception's often framed by your choices that you make and the relationships that you have. And so,
which, you know, by the way, any athletes out there that need a job, we are hiring for real estate agents.
There you go.
I do love athletes because they're coachable.
Yep.
You know, and so you typically will take instructions because they've had a coach or a mentor before, so they understand, like, okay, well, I've really got to follow through and lean on the coach versus, you know, seeing what everybody else is doing and going towards that way. So
the things about athletes, they understand how to develop. You know, they know how to take a plan and put it into action. They know how to follow a plan. They believe in growth. They saw where they started and how they got better over the course of time. They have drive and ambition. They're competitive. And so you hear that. I hear that so much as I've got out of coaching. People talk about, man, we love hiring former coaches. We love hiring former athletes because the mentality is just so different.
Yeah.
You know,
and teachers too.
Yes.
Yeah. So if you're a teacher, athlete, or coach,
come work for Keaty Real Estate. Yeah. How's the market right now?
It's very interesting. I mean, you know, we're down 20% on sales, but our volume is still higher than it was in 2019. So we're getting back to pre-COVID volume.
Okay.
But the sales are a lot lower. But because there's less demand, there's less demand, but there's also less new houses coming on the market than we've seen since 2012.
Oh, wow.
So what's happening is the volume is the average sales price is still maintaining at a high level, and you know, I wouldn't be surprised if it continues to go up just a little bit. Month over month, we're down slightly, but year over year, we're going to be probably higher average sales price, and that's just because supply and demand. Even though we have less demand because of the interest rates, we also have less supply because of the interest rates. Yeah. Because a lot of people have 2.5, 3% interest rates, so they're holding on to that house longer than they usually would have.
Gotcha.
Now we still have, I call them the 3 Ds. We got diapers, divorce, and death. I mean, that's still happening. So like, as people need to move up, Tommy's got twins and another, he's got 3 kids. I've got 3 kids. And if you keep having kids, eventually you're going to grow up your house. You're going to have to move, so that happens. And then, that's still going on. So we still have the first time home buyers because it's still cheaper to buy a house than to rent a house in most circumstances. Right. I mean, even though interest rates are at 7.5 today, I mean, a $250,000 house, you're still looking at $1,600 a month, which means, rent is still, $1,600. Right. So it's still a better plan. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens though. Do we get more supply first, or are we going to get more demand? If we get more demand, if the interest rates go down and demand jumps and we don't fill that supply, prices are going to go up.
Yeah.
So
what's the market saying? I mean, what's the Fed saying on rates?
Well, I mean, I don't know what the Fed is saying, but the Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, National Association of Realtors, the Mortgage Association, they all agree that they're expecting fourth quarter of next year interest rates to be closer down to 6 or below.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think the sentiment is that we're going to see lower interest rates. It's just a matter of when.
Right.
Now, they've been wrong before too. Right. I mean, if we had a crystal ball, then, we wouldn't be here probably.
Right.
So anyway, it'll be interesting to see. We do believe the interest rates will calm down. Yeah. We do have programs out there like a 2-1 buy down where we're buying down the interest rate. The sellers may offer it, buy it down 2 points, 1 year, and then 1 point next year, and then plan to refinance in a year or two. So it's a very interesting time, but it's not as bad as most people think. It's still we're back to pre-COVID, which we all knew was going to happen.
Right. It was like unrealistic.
Yeah. What's interesting is there's very low inventory in the commercial sector, like as far as industrial, very low inventory, still high demand. Commercial, high demand, low supply. Of course, our property management company, very low occupancy. Vacancy rates.
Really?
Yeah. So, it's still doing really well. It's kind of
so you're in all those different tiers.
You're
diversified in all those different tiers.
And thank goodness you kind of have to be to make sure to offset each other.
Right.
But man, I can't thank you enough for what you're doing for UL and for our community and for our athletes. And it's very interesting. And I can't wait to have you back a year from today. We'll book it now to see how much money you raise. I know you can do it.
Yeah,
I'd love within a month already making $100,000 is huge. Yeah, congratulations.
I appreciate it. We're excited, and I appreciate the opportunity to be on this and anything that we can do to promote our brand, but also Keaty Real Estate.
Absolutely. We're looking forward to becoming a member for sure.
Absolutely. Awesome.
And if anybody wants to know more about where to get more information, where are they going to find you?
So go to KreweAllons.com. I'll spell it out. www.KreweAllons.com. On there, it has all the different giving levels. It's got the information about the different events we have coming up. It's got opportunities to shop for student athletes gear. You can get jerseys, T-shirts, that kind of thing. It's got all the different members of our board on there, and then it's got my contact information, my cell phone, and that kind of thing. So www.KreweAllons.com.
And if they want any kind of special event, they call you directly?
Yeah.
Awesome.
I'll give my cell phone. It's 337-292-6265. So
there you go, guys. Give them a call. Let's help Ragin Cajun retain and get better talent. And man, thank you for everything you're doing for our community.
Yeah, thank you, man. This is awesome.